I call to order the City of Bloomington Board of Zoning Appeals for July the 22nd, 2021. Roll call, please.
Clapper,
Here.
Burrell,
Here.
Sandberg.
Here.
Okay. We do not have any minutes this month to approve. Are there any reports, resolutions, and communications?
We do not have any at this time.
Okay. So the petitions to be continued are, or we have one, which is CU/V-19-20, Robert Aotearoa. And the petitions we will be hearing tonight are V-05-21 Nancy Armstrong and V-08-21 Starbucks Coffee Company. We are going to move forward at this time with petition V-08-21 Starbucks Coffee Company.
Ms. Clapper, I'm so sorry. She has been able to join us. So if we want to go ahead and do hers first, I think that would probably be better.
Okay. So strike that. We're gonna proceed with V-05-21 Nancy Armstrong. Can we please have the staff report?
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, can you see my screen? Great. This petition is V-05-21. It is a setback variance request for a property located here on the Near East Side at Fess and near University. The property is roughly 6,500 square feet. It is zoned R3. It is bordered on the west by Fess and by a north-south alley on the east, and then surrounding uses are residential in nature as well. The property is developed with a single-family house. You can see here on the left in the photo, and you can see a garage on the right that was previously located on the lot and has since been torn down. They received demolition delay approval from the Historic Preservation Commission for their roughly 1930s era garage. The property was listed as contributing in the Sites and Structures Survey. So they received approval to tear that down and some verbal support at that meeting for this ADU design and location, which you are seeing today. So the petitioner is requesting a variance from required side and rear setbacks for a detached accessory dwelling unit. So I've put here kind of a bird's eye view. We are looking west, so the house located here, and then this garage area, this garage is gone, and that is the footprint where they are requesting to build the ADU. You can see obviously immediately adjacent to an alley and also immediately adjacent to a parking pad that they use on the site here, where there's a white car that's kind of squeezed in between the developed garage and the development on the lot immediately adjacent. So in the proposed site plan, there's a 480 square foot footprint, again, where the previous garage was located. Code requires 5 feet off of that north property line and off of the east property line. The petitioner is requesting 3 feet, so to encroach into the setback 2 feet. Their request hinges on details of the lot, of the existing nature of the lot. I put in some proposed site plan elevations just so you could get an idea of what they are planning there. You are not approving an ADU per se, you are just approving the setbacks, and then we will still have to do the staff level ADU review to make sure it meets all of the code requirements for that, but preliminarily we think that it does. And they included some site pictures so you can get an idea. This is the garage here, the white garage that was taken down, and then the parking pad. And you can see kind of on the left here, the mature trees are right up against this parking pad, and then also the development of the lot to the south. So a view of the garage before it was taken down, and this is the public alley that runs north-south immediately east of it. And another shot of the surrounding area. So as you know, development standards variance has a 3-part criteria. The department believes that the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community, building a new ADU in the exact location of the previously the previous garage that has been there for quite some time and not posed any known issues, we think is appropriate. Again, no negative effect on use and value of adjacent property, will be very similar to what was there before. Just more modern, obviously, with a separate use, and that the practical difficulties identified for the site with the peculiar condition include wanting to be able to continue to utilize the parking area that is immediately adjacent to where the development was, and to give it a little bit more room than maybe would be required if it weren't immediately adjacent to the house that is to the south. So when you're coming up the alley, the north-south alley, you already have to take kind of a tight turn because our alleys aren't as wide as our roads. And so lessening that area by even 2 feet could have a negative effect. And a similar reasoning for the 2 feet on the east side to allow for some more room to stay open on the site. So based on the written report, the department recommends that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the proposed findings and approve V0521 with the following conditions. We recommend that the petitioner apply for the ADU through a building permit with the Monroe County Building Department and Planning and Transportation Department within 90 days approval of these requested variances, so that this isn't kind of hanging out there. If they want to build the ADU, they can do it. Let's move forward with that. And the second condition being that this variance applies only to what you've seen here today. So the exact locations that they've shown, and that if they needed to change that, they would have to come back. So I can answer any questions, or the petitioner's here as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Jackie. Okay, petitioner's representative, is Ms. Armstrong here?
Yes, there she is.
Ms.
Hi.
Armstrong? Hello, could you please state your name?
Nancy Armstrong.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, you have up to 20 minutes to present your petition.
I believe that Ms. Cameron has stated all of the reasons for my request for the setback variance very well. I did prepare a petitioner's statement that refers to the need to use the current parking pad and to continue to use that without making it any smaller. We do have big trees on the property. I don't want to be any closer to them than the garage was before. I do also own the property to the north, and so we're, on very good terms with the residents of that house. It's my mother, and we've never had any issues with visibility down the alley with the garage where it was. So I don't see that putting the ADU in the very same place as the garage was would pose any issues for visibility or safety or aesthetics or any other reason not to do it. I don't know if you have any questions for me about that.
That is the next part of the hearing. So
Okay.
if you're done with your statement, then we're back to the commissioners for any questions of staff or the petitioner.
Okay.
Susan, Flavia, anybody?
Yes, I don't have any questions at all. I think this is fairly straightforward. I think the case has been laid out nicely for the setback variance, so I'm fine.
Okay, thanks. Anything from you, Flavia?
I agree with Susan. It's pretty self-explanatory. Thank you.
Great. So then we are to the public. Is there anyone here this evening who would like to comment on this petition?
If you would like to, you could raise your virtual hand or message either Ms. Clapper or myself. I think it's only the other petitioner here.
Okay, seeing none.
Recording in progress.
Seeing none, then we are back to the petitioner for any final comment.
Thank you for considering my petition and for seeing it favorably. We are excited to provide another small dwelling on an existing plot near to campus and our lovely downtown. So I appreciate your support in this project.
Thank you. Okay, we're back to the board for action. Would anybody like to make a motion?
So I will give it a shot. I would move approval of V-05-21 based on the 3 criteria that were listed in a previous slide.
And we had 2 conditions proposed, if that's okay.
Right.
2 conditions.
Thank you.
And I second.
Thank you. Can we have a vote, please?
Burrell,
Yes.
Sandberg,
Yes.
Clapper.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
The motion has passed and the petition is granted. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're moving on to V-08-21 Starbucks Coffee Company. And we're ready for a staff report when you are, Jackie.
Great. Okay. You saw this petition last month. This property is located on South Liberty Drive, just northeast of the intersection of Liberty and State Road 45 on the west side of town. The property is 1.05 acres. It was part of our Park 37 plan unit development, and the comprehensive plan is employment center is the designation from the comprehensive plan. And then surrounding uses include typical uses out there: multi-tenant center, retail sale, big box, restaurant, and financial institution. And you can see here it's currently vacant. So the petitioner is requesting a variance to allow vehicle parking in excess of the maximum vehicle parking allowance for the use they're requesting, which is restaurant. When we met last month, staff indicated and had proposed or recommended that you continue the petition because what we have found in the past has been useful for these types of variances is for the petitioner to provide some sort of data indicating that they have stores that have shown in the past a need for the extra parking. And especially in this case, where only 11 parking spaces are allowed and they're asking for 33, that's quite a big jump percentage-wise over what is allowed on site. So you saw in your packet what the petitioner did provide was 6 locations in and around Bloomington. And they did not provide the parking numbers that we requested. What they provided was total number of parking spaces at each location. Those vary by location. So I am going to show you something quickly here, if I can. We wanted to go ahead and bring it forward in case you all felt that that was enough information for you to make the decision. And then just to highlight to you what we were asking for and why by using some aerials of a different Starbucks in town. So I'm going to show you that quickly. So you can see here, this is an aerial of the Starbucks located on South Walnut. Can you see that? Okay, 1921 South Walnut. Let me move you out of the way. Okay, so this is an aerial which may be clear to the savvy that this is during 2020. This is during the pandemic because there are almost no cars in the parking lot and only cars wrapped around the building, which is kind of interesting. But we can look back on aerials all the way back to 2005, around the time I believe that it was probably, maybe when it was built, I'm not sure why this one is entirely empty. But the reason we ask for parking numbers and not number of parking spaces on the site is because of what you see in these aerials, which is we have found that a lot of times our uses are over parked. They're parked for the busiest day of the year as opposed to, the 80% day or the 70% day. So this is the aerial from 2001. You can see there's about 11 cars in the parking lot. I'm sorry, 2010. Here we've got 2011. Similar story, the back is entirely empty. There's about 15 cars there. 2014, and 2016, I think have slightly more, but again, quite a bit that's empty. And then 2019, similar, still much more than the other years, but still a lot that are empty. So in service of our larger city goals of helping to reduce climate change effects and trying to protect our green open spaces and all of those things like that, reducing car dependency, we try to minimize the number of extra spaces that we just have around town at our uses, and that's why the code is written the way it is. So I just wanted to highlight that is why we request the kind of data we do request. We didn't get that here, but we do understand that you may feel that the information they've provided is enough to move forward based on your conversation last time. So I'll just quickly go through the rest of the presentation. Again, as I said, the allowable number of spaces is 11 and the proposed number is 33. In this particular case, they will not be going over the impervious surface coverage, even if they get the 33. So that is positive. They have quite a bit of space on the site. So they were able to fit that in for the size of the building and supportive development around the building. They were able to fit that in and still meet impervious surface coverage. So again, here are the 3 locations of where the parking would be. And the issue that we still have is from the department's standpoint is that we aren't sure that the peculiar nature of the property in question, for example, what we suggested last time was looking at other stores that are close to highways, close to big business centers, as I know board member Sandberg mentioned, things like that can show that they have higher volume than a regular store. Those were the types of things we were looking for. We haven't found that, so we are recommending again that it be continued because, as we said last time, we acknowledge that Starbucks is a well-known name and use, and we understand that people can kind of make the assumption that it's going to be busy, but we would rather have actual numbers on that before recommending approval. But we realize it's kind of a on the fence type of decision for you all to make. So we can help you craft a finding for the 3rd one if you do decide to go forward to recommend approval tonight, but we recommend continuance. So I can answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Jackie. Petitioner's representative. Mr. Timko?
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. Can everyone hear me now?
Yes, please state your name.
My name is Mike Timko.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, you have up to 20 minutes to present the petition.
Great, thank you. And thank you all for having us back tonight. I know we had a really good conversation at last month's meeting, so I'll try to keep this relatively short and just kind of hit on some of the highlight of the new information that's being brought to the table now. So I do understand what Jackie was asking for. We did take a little bit different approach, but we do believe that the evidence that we provide here is pretty substantial and does a really good job of supporting our case of why we should have the number of parking stalls that we're requesting. So like Jackie said, everybody got a chance to review. We did look at 6 stores that are in the nearby area of Indiana. And all of them had a very similar setup when it came to being a freestanding Starbucks as opposed to being a part of a multi-retail area that had shared parking. And that's really important because we want to make sure that we're creating a representative scenario. So the results were pretty overwhelming. There were even a couple examples, one of which I know Jackie already pointed out in Bloomington that had 35 and 27 stalls each. So this, I think that does a great job of presenting that this is very much the norm for Starbucks. I would like to point out, and I know all of you know this, but these places don't want to increase their construction costs any more than they have to. So that they aren't going about building additional parking stalls if they don't feel that there's a need for it. They did express to me, and I apologize for not being able to provide exactly what the planning staff was looking for, but they did express to me that this is an extremely rare scenario for them where somebody is telling them to build less parking stalls instead of more. They're used to being in a situation where they're being asked to provide additional parking stalls because there is the idea of what a Starbucks is and the amount of traffic it generates. They did provide us some great information about the typical number of transactions during their peak hours, which again, as most people would anticipate, 7 to 9 a.m., which lines up with commute times. And so Cece, the Starbucks rep, did a great job of kind of breaking out that there's 125 transactions that occur just in that 2-hour window on average inside the store only. So that doesn't include any of the drive-through tickets that go along with that. So as Cece stated in her letter, Starbucks feels like between the amount of traffic or generation of customers that they see come in during that 2-hour window and the number of employees that they have, that they really do need to be at the 33 parking count that we have proposed on the site plan to be able to operate efficiently and to not cause issues around the site. Other than that, I would say, we touched on this a little bit last time. With it being a Starbucks, whether the parking stalls are there or not, people are still going to come. So we really believe it's in everybody's best interest to make sure that we're providing adequate space for them to be able to park and to not back up onto Liberty Drive, because that's the last thing we would want to see happen. So with that, I'm more than happy to answer any direct questions about the new information. If there's any other discussion about potential solutions, I'm more than happy to discuss that as well. So again, thank you for having us back. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. We are to the board for questions of staff or the petitioner at this point. And I'm going to start. I have a question for you, Jackie. The transactional information that was just mentioned, I didn't see that in our packet. That wasn't.
Yeah, I think looks like he sent me an email at 4:30. So Mike, you'll have to present that here because I can't make, usually in normal times we send things on to the BZA that come in quite late, but then we have paper copies for anyone who might be members of the public, but since I can't do that second part, make those available, yes, it's just something you have to present here.
Okay, yeah, and I appreciate it, and I apologize. And like Jackie said, we were late coming to the game with this information, so I apologize for not having that sooner, but I can just quickly go through the letter. So Cece Roberts is the store development manager for the Midwest region of Starbucks. So she did some digging on information about historical transaction data in the state of Indiana. So that was her start point of looking at this information. And so some of the information that she included in this letter includes that on average, the number of transactions per day in the state of Indiana is about 750, what they call tickets per day. She goes on to say that an average of 260 of those tickets are happening inside the building as opposed through the drive-through window. And then she goes one step further to say that their peak hours are between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. every day. And that of those 260 transactions that happen through the course of the day inside the store, 125 of those happen in just the 2-hour window. So hopefully that presents a little bit better light, or sheds a little bit more light on the number of people that are actually coming into the store during those peak hours.
And so just for clarification, Mr. Timko, that is transactions. So that's not really, that's per party, that every time that somebody's coming to the cash register.
Correct. So there could be a select few where there's 2 customers in one vehicle. But I think most times during a commute situation, it would probably be fair to say that these are individuals coming in, so 1 car per 1 transaction. And Jackie, I think, just displayed the remainder of the letter on the screen as well for people to read.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. Did everybody have adequate time to read that? Okay. Further questions at this point for staff or the petitioner? Susan?
Yes, with the comparison to the 6 additional locations that are in the Bloomington area, did I hear correctly that there are anywhere between 35 and 27 stalls per store, or at least in 2 of those stores? Could somebody clarify exactly what the...
Yeah, so they range from 14 at the Bedford store to 48 at the Burton Lane Martinsville store. And so then the South Walnut store, the one that I showed the aerials of, has actually 35 spaces. There's like one on here from Terre Haute that's on US 41. They have 45 spaces. So yeah, they range from 14 to 48.
Okay, so that's not local to Bloomington. That's all across.
No, it's regional. There's 2 Bloomington stores: Martinsville, Bedford, Columbus, and Terre Haute.
That is very helpful to me. I understand that in our UDO, we're trying to eliminate parking and reduce it to the best of our ability, and our UDO is clear on that. But I think when we're comparing some of this information from other Starbucks, that is useful, because if they're saying that, you know, this is impactful to the performance of their store, I want to be mindful of that. So thanks for that clarification.
Any other questions?
Jackie, just so the 2 Bloomington stores, one has 30, the South Walnut one has 5 spaces. What is the other one?
They listed 4257 North Tupelo Drive, which I don't know where that is. So let me look, but that says 27 spaces.
Yeah, and Jackie, I think that was way up on the north side of town, and it had a Bloomington address, but it looked like it could have been more so Monroe County area.
Yeah, I think that is, it's actually not even in the aerials. I think that's in Ellettsville and it's new. I also looked at, you know, how I showed you the South Walnut store to show that they do have 35 spaces, but are they filling those often? And similar, I looked at the store in Martinsville that is, you know, right, well, it's not there, not anymore, but right when you used to drive into Martinsville at that first light, and there's a Starbucks there on your left. And it was similar street view where it was like they have the spaces, but they're not full. And obviously, of course, that's like a one-day snapshot a year. But being that it didn't seem like Starbucks was going to be able to easily supply us with what we requested, I was trying to think of ones that could be similar, because most of our other Starbucks, Flavia, are in multi-tenant centers. So that makes it hard to say how many of those spaces are needed for that use.
Yeah, you were looking at freestanding.
Right.
Freestanding Starbucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I drive by the Ellettsville Starbucks is full. All the parking spots are full.
Jackie, the South Walnut Street store, when was that built? How long?
Oh
ago?
gosh, I'm not sure. It was definitely, that's why I was wondering if it was new in those 2005 aerials, because there was nothing there, like if the building was maybe not open yet, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
That was as far back as I went. Oh, I can look it up. Hold on, let me see.
I'm just wondering if that would have been under a different ordinance.
Oh, yes. So that's the other thing. Thank you for bringing that up, to mention. Board member Stamberg makes a good point. It is useful, of course, to look at similar uses and see what their needs are. But then by also noting that they have all been built under, especially the ones that aren't built here, under different codes than this code. And so we are probably moving more toward less parking. And so some of those were built pre those code requirements. Yeah, it was built in 2004. So it was probably not open yet in that first aerial I showed you, which is why it seemed odd. Yeah. So that would be pre old UDO. That's pretty old.
Yes, Susan.
I think I've raised this question before, but I think as all of us drive by the various places where people are driving through in order to get their coffee or their fast food or what have you, obviously the pandemic has been a big factor, and people idling for long periods of time in long lines. As we're slowly but surely getting a handle on the pandemic, and maybe more and more people are going to be more likely to park and go into a store, should that be factored in as well? And I don't know if this question goes to the petitioner and their projection of trends going forward, but with respect to what we're trying to accomplish in our UDO with respect to the environment and less cars and less idling traffic, could there be an actual trade-off with people pulling into park as opposed to standing in those lines for greater lengths of time?
Yeah, and I'd be happy to speak to that. I do think we're going to see that trend come back to more people parking. And I think historically, like most quick service restaurants with drive-throughs, when the drive-through lines do start getting longer, more and more people do park because they realize that it's faster for them to go in. The other thing we talked about last time, and this is really probably speaking to finding number 3 about what makes this site unique, is that it's very close to the interstate. And when you have interstate, you're not just seeing local commuters, you're also seeing people that have potentially been traveling for a long time that are looking for a place to get out and stretch their legs. So I do think we'll go back to seeing more people parking and coming inside the building. There is a patio space being provided as a part of this restaurant. And I'll say this, Starbucks is not decreasing the amount of available dining seating space inside their stores, despite how COVID has influenced what's going on. So the fact that they're still leaving that there means that they still believe that there's going to be people coming inside regularly.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sure.
But if I could, ask another question in the spirit of a compromise. 11 is, of course, what's allowed by code currently. You're asking for 33, which is significantly higher than our standard here. Is there any room for any kind of compromise number? Can we do with less than 33 and maybe be more in the 20 range or 20 to 25 range? Is that possible?
Ms. Clapper, were you going to say something?
I think that gets at the heart of the issue, Susan, for me, in that I think we all recognize, having talked about this now at length, the use coupled with the location, that 11 doesn't meet the projected need. I think that makes sense. So I think one of the reasons that the specific data that the planning staff has requested to help inform what is the appropriate number. So we know there needs to be more, but we do need some data so that we feel comfortable that we've hit the mark, or we within reason have hit the mark, and don't provide any excess, because that's what our code is directing us to guard against, right?
Sure.
To not provide more than is actually required. So while I'm very appreciative of this late information about the number of transactions, and I am very amenable to some type of variance, I still don't feel like I have the information that I need to feel comfortable that this is the appropriate number. And so, I think it's a fair question, Susan, to ask, but I just don't think that we have the data to be able to act on unless there's something more that Mr. Timko can provide at this point. I was pretty disappointed to know in the packet that we didn't have what we hoped for, because I was sorry that we had to even continue the case one time, honestly. I mean, we that's not our purpose, is to put obstacles in front of petitioners. We want to see businesses, additional businesses come to town, and of course we want to see them succeed. So, I feel like this is kind of an uncomfortable position, because I think we're all very much in favor of providing a variance for this business at this location. It's just we needing the appropriate demonstration, if you will, with the data, so that we feel comfortable that this is the right number. This is really the right number. Because there's such a huge range in the stores that you've provided, it sort of opens the question, why 14 in one and 48 in another? I mean, it's a pretty big range. And so I guess if it would help at all in providing the information, if we could maybe target 2 stores, and if, I don't know, Jackie, if any example was provided to the petitioners as to exactly how it's been collected in the past when we've.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think part of our suggestion in the hearing last time was, do you have any stores that match the characteristics of this store? Near an interchange, near an employment center, like board member Sandberg mentioned, no street parking. It's not the characteristics of the lot like size, but the characteristics of what's driving people to this store. And we don't know what those are, but it seems like they should be able to find that. I mean, like, for example, when we did the Culver's variance for the Culver's on the west side, they pooled with other Culver's owners in Indiana and had their staff people literally just once an hour for 5 days in a week, how many cars are in the parking lot, and then it was just like a data dump for you all to be able to look at and see. We did the average and the high and the low of stores that were very similar to the location of that Culver's, and that's what we think that it's likely that information exists. We just that information would show that, okay, maybe 11 isn't enough for this type of restaurant, but our code doesn't parse types. So you have to be able to show that that you need it. I mean, that's what the variance should be.
Right.
I don't know if that answered your question. Sorry.
Can I add something?
Mr. Keeman, you are more than welcome to join the conversation. I do need to swear you in.
Okay.
Could you please state your name?
David Kamen.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. You may comment.
Yeah. I think that the real point is board member, I think it was Burrell, stated the obvious, is that the Ellisville store, which is new, the parking lot's full. It's just full and it's full. That's how it works. And I think the other elephant in the room is the number of morning transactions. My wife and my son being a couple of those customers by accident, just by accident, that's the right number of spaces to support the business. And they worked very hard. This site plan's been amended to several times, more times than I can count, to try to work with the parameters of the that the city wanted and so on. And I think that it's just, and my understanding is construction to get it forward for this year needs to start next month. Mike could probably answer that a little bit better, but that's my understanding. And I'd like to get it built during good weather as opposed to the middle of the winter. But it just seems to me that given the transaction data given that one of your board members was there and obviously sees that the parking lot is full, at least when she's there. I don't know what time she's there. I'd like to ask her that if it's in the morning, the way Mr. Timko describes the rush of transactions. But being off the interstate, if the Ellisville thing is that busy with the parking, well, this obviously is going to need at least that number, and most likely more than what the Ellisville store needs. So it almost seems to me that, that we're hoping with all the work done and revising the site plan over and over and over, and with the obvious, to me, it's obvious at least, I hope it is to you, that that is the right number of spaces, so that they had the congestion in mind, to minimize congestion, make it so that it's not a nuisance for Liberty Drive. And, I guess some fancy studies, maybe that helps, but I'm not sure what we're going to glean out of that,
Well,
having a bunch of fancy studies.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you for your comment. Yes, Flavia.
I guess, so one important thing to consider is location. I think there's different types of Starbucks, of course. If you have one in the mall or one in a location where it's a commercial, strip, and one that is a standalone, but also the location, this location is by an interstate. So you have a lot of travelers, not just Bloomington people coming here.
Right.
It will be people that will stop to use the restroom and stretch their legs or eat a snack or, get a drink. Anyway, regardless. So I guess the comparison gets pretty difficult. If I were to compare, it would have to be with Martinsville, because that's in an interstate, or maybe the Bedford. I don't know which the location is on the Bedford one, and the Ellisville one, the South Walnut one. It's in town, so that's a different type of. Even though it's freestanding, it's in town. But anyway, I guess. That what makes it difficult to compare, because you have to compare oranges with oranges here.
Sure.
And similar things. But this particular location has no parking. This particular location is on a major arterial, surrounded by major arterial. So it's kind of and surrounded by businesses. So it's interesting. I do believe that they need more than 11. 11 is not enough. That is not a question to me. 33 to me, according to the letter from CC Roberts, is what they need. I don't know if she had any other. I'm sure she didn't get that number out of thin air if she works with all the regional Starbucks. However, this number is between the two stores in Bloomington is 35 and 27. So, the two freestanding ones. If you want to do the medium of that, that's 31. So anyway, I'm just saying, what I'm saying here is there's no doubt that there's need for more parking. No doubt whatsoever. And I agree with that.
Sure. I think we've all gone on record and with that understanding. I think at this point it's just a matter of how much parking. I do want to recognize that our code, in the way that is written, is aggressively. It is unusual in its aggressiveness in trying to minimize parking. That is a characteristic of our code. And that does not exist in a lot of places outside of Bloomington. So we have a little bit of a unique perspective when it comes to parking. And that is why we come up against this kind of thing a lot, not just this type of use. Again, it's the things that were built in Bloomington were built under a different code. We're talking almost 20 years ago when we're looking at the South Walnut Street. It's not helpful to me necessarily. I just feel like if the petitioners could provide the information that would very easily answer the question that I have, so that I know that this is an appropriate number. I don't think it's just a matter of how much at this point. Parking. Yes, Susan.
I think in many ways we're kind of talking past one another, because I get the feeling that our petitioners feel like they have provided the rationale for the 33 numbers. And I'm sort of convinced that they do indeed need that level of parking. I think, part of the duty of the BZA is obviously we have to be mindful of our UDO and our code and the trends in our community. But I think, we are the body that can actually make the exceptions to the rule if we feel enough of a preponderance of evidence has been brought forward that us trying to negotiate some midpoint between 11 and 33 might be counterproductive at this point. I am less concerned about being a strict interpreter with respect to parking, because again, given the location, given where it is, given that there really is no opportunity for shared parking, I feel somewhat compelled to go ahead and grant the variance without delay. They're also making the case that they want to start construction very soon too, or we're going to be putting them into some difficulties with impending weather. So I know it's difficult. I really do. So I'm a little bit torn myself, but leaning more toward giving the petitioner what they feel is important for their business model.
If I may, Ms. Clapper, we do have a more restrictive UDO, but that, and then like what Board Member Sandberg is saying, that is part of why we are also a community that does grant variances. We do work with property owners who have unique issues. In this case, providing numbers of available parking spaces on sites isn't the same as providing numbers for need of parking on those sites, as we looked at on the South Walnut example. I'm sure maybe this is like not as much of a trope as I think it is. I don't know. Maybe it's just a planning thing. But Walmart wants to build for the day after Thanksgiving, and they want 600 parking spaces because one day a year, that's how many they need. And a lot of times communities have done that. And then now, the other 364 days, you're looking at a sea of parking. This isn't obviously to that scale, but they have literally not shown us any stores that have shown the need for this much parking, even one day a year or once a week, or, they're saying based on all of the stores in Indiana. So think of, as you mentioned before, Flavia, in strips, in a mall, freestanding, they're all different. They're lumping all of those together and giving us the average number of transactions for peak hours at those stores when they're just wildly different. So what I think could be more helpful, and again, for you all, but for us to be able, why we weren't able to write a positive recommendation is, are there 3 stores in Indiana that have similar characteristics to what you're trying to build here? Can you give us any data about how many people are actually going into those stores? Even if it is transaction data, I think that more specific transaction data could tell an actual story about what could happen at this store. We do try to be mindful of people's timelines. That's fine, but it's also our responsibility to try to help development go in well. The site plan hasn't been amended 10 times. The site plan they initially submitted didn't meet code. So we have to talk to them about that and have them update it. And that's what they did, which is great. But we want to be expedient, but we also want to be fair to them and to other restaurants and uses who have come forward, who have supplied the data we've requested, and made the case that they need spaces, not just on the assumption that we know that their business is busy. And so that's why we're recommending getting slightly more information for next month.
Susan.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate that. And also, I think there is a difference between the retail spaces that have to plan for those Black Friday, every spot in the parking lot is full and people driving around, and a Starbucks that appears to me to be busy all the time. I mean, again, just anecdotally, when I'm driving by, I'm seeing long lines around those establishments, and it's not just during the holidays, it's pretty much on a daily basis. And so I think, we can make a distinction there. And I agree. I guess my last question maybe is, are the petitioners truly clear on what it is that the planning and transportation staff is asking you for in order to make this decision? That's where I think we're kind of talking past each other here. And do we need to provide any more clarification on what data they actually want from you for us to be able to make this decision a little more quickly than we've been able to do up to this point?
Sure. Ms. Library, you can say something.
Excuse me, Mr. Timko. Jackie, was that it? I don't think, were you asking Mr. Timko, Susan?
Well, I was just asking whoever, can answer the question.
Sure, I can answer. Okay, sorry,
Jackie can.
So basically, I may have to ask Mike to answer. I mean, yes, we have said, I even just said here right now exactly what Culver's did, which was, they literally had their employees in the store pop out of the store once an hour for a week and just count how many cars were in the parking lot. They did that at 3 locations that were very similar, within a mile of a highway in a similarly sized town, and then submitted that information to us because that seemed characteristic of what their store was going to be. And they were able to show that they always had more than what our code would allow. And so that if they were going to be successful here, they weren't going to be able to be limited to what the code allows. That is what we're looking for. We think, as you're both saying, I've driven by a million Starbuckses. We think that data probably exists, but it feels uncomfortable to just make that assumption. And with such a large corporation, it feels like they should be able to find 2 or 3 Starbuckses somewhere that have characteristics similar to this one to be able to do that. It feels odd that seems like that it feels like maybe they feel like that's kind of an imposition or something, because this is 3 times the amount of parking our code allows. And we just approved that, not very long ago. And so we are hesitant to just kind of do it on what is an assumption that is probably going to turn out to be true.
And I would further refine that request, Jackie, if you feel comfortable with this, that they could limit the data to their busiest window of time.
Sure. Yes.
So
that's what you're most concerned with.
That's what we're most concerned with. So for the 2 hours, the 7 to 9 commute time, or whatever that's defined as, over a week, we would like some real data as to how many cars are parked in 2 stores. Yeah. In 2 stores that have similar characteristics to the one that would be built here. That doesn't seem onerous to me in terms of the request, and I feel it. I will just say, as a BZA member, having heard a number of these cases previously, it feels like the necessary due diligence in order to for me, in order to grant a variance of this magnitude. So if the variance is not so much in question, it's the magnitude of variance at this point. And that is my final comment. We need to go to, does anybody have anything else to say at this moment? If not, we will go to the public and to see if there's anyone else here who would like to speak to this petition. Okay, anybody here who would like to speak to this petition?
There's nobody here.
Nobody, and we're back to the board for action. I don't know if this will pass, but I will propose, I would move for a for continuation. I don't know if I'll get a second.
Second.
Can I have any further comments before we take roll? Yes, Susan.
Well, again, I guess I would ask the petitioners if they feel that they now have a direction in order to bring back to us the necessary data and information that we need to do what I think you're getting an indication that we're very inclined to want to do for you, but we feel at this point we can't just yet. And so I know that is difficult, but are you getting what more we need in order to not just be strict interpreters of the UDO and say 11, that's all you get? I mean, we want to do right by your business, but we need a little bit more from you or from your organization in order to do that. Mr. Timko or whoever can answer that.
Yes, so we do understand the request. All I'll say is that when you put that kind of information in the hands of the developer, we're obviously going to choose the most favorable stores that we believe could be the worst case scenario. That is still within a representative space, so that could be a new store on an interstate, so it'll still be representative. So I guess my question back would be is if the data comes back and says we need 40 parking spaces, is that going to be allowed? Because of what we've been asking to this point is to use the discretion of people's personal experiences and the data parking lot sizes available in the region.
Yeah, no, not unless you make a new request. You've asked for 33. That's what you asked for. If you want to renotice and send letters to the neighbors, you can ask for more.
Okay. I think we are ready to vote on this motion.
So the motion is to continue the petition with request for more information to the next hearing. Sandberg?
Yes.
Clapper?
Yes.
Burrell?
Reluctantly, yes.
3-0.
Okay, so the petition is continued to the August meeting. And in the meantime, Mr. Timko, if there are any questions that arise, please don't hesitate to contact Jackie so she can provide any further input. If there's any confusion at all, we want to make sure that this does not have to draw out any further. I was hoping we could take care of it this month, and I will look forward to helping to take care of it next month.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you.